I mean, just look at this. Look at it. So there is a lot of vegan ramen recipes out there, and there's a lot of really good ones. A lot of them are based on either a miso broth or a vegetable broth, and a lot of those broths are really good and they have a lot of flavor, tons of flavor. Now, one of the things that a lot of those broths are missing is the experience, the mouthfeel, the fullness and richness of a traditional ramen broth. Now that fullness and richness all comes from one thing, and that is boiling either a pork or chicken bone. And those things, what those do is those create gelatins and thickness to a broth that you cannot replicate with a traditional vegan broth. And that's what we're gonna change today. We're gonna try to replicate some of that fullness and richness, making a vegetable broth, giving it that gelatin-like feel and that thickness and richness from all the fats that are in a traditional broth. Now I'm gonna be doing a lot more today than just upgrading the broth of this vegan ramen. We're gonna be taking this to a whole other level. So let's get going. Let's upgrade some vegan ramen. So as you can see, I got a bunch of stuff here. Most of this is going to go in this broth. We're gonna be making a lot of broth, so don't worry, this is gonna be more than just one soup. We're not gonna go through this whole mess just to get a small amount. We're gonna be making a lot of broth here. So for this recipe, we've got a large stock pot. I have about a half a pound of shiitake mushrooms, so I'm just gonna add the whole half pound in there. I got a bunch of green onions, just chopping the ends off. We don't want those. Really, I just want all of this to boil together. Gonna throw that bunch. I got a large head of ginger. Now we're gonna be using some more ginger later, so I need to save some of this. We're throwing it in skins and all. Same thing, 2 heads of garlic. We're gonna chop this in half, throw it in skins and all. Just make sure you discard the root. Make sure that you give everything a nice wash. The mushrooms I didn't wash, but I brushed them off. I chopped off the ends of the stems. The garlic, I washed off the outside, peeled the outside skin layer, and dried that off very nicely. Now I got 2 pounds of carrots. We're just gonna be using half of this. We want 1 pound of carrots for this. So it's gonna be about 4 large carrots. I'm just gonna cut the stems off. Just throw them right in. We don't need to chop these up or anything. Now I'm gonna do a 1/4 cup of coconut oil. That fat helps like emulsify the broth and give it its thickness and richness. I'm gonna do a 1/4 cup of safflower oil. Now we're gonna be using more oil a little bit later. I know a lot of you guys don't like to use oil, but in this recipe, it's something that's kind of a necessity. I'm gonna be doing about a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. Now I'm gonna be using a dark soy sauce. You don't have to use dark soy sauce. You could use just a regular soy sauce, but about a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Now I know this is a large stock, but realistically, we're just gonna be doing about a tablespoon of Marmite. Now this is one of my favorite ingredients. Mushroom seasoning. Now this is a mushroom powder. You can get this at any Asian market. I've listed online before where you can get it. This really adds a giant umami punch to anything you add it to. I really like the flavor of this. Now this is dried kombu. Now some of this has some like this white residue on it. I'm gonna rinse this residue off. It's not something I want in my broth. Now I've seen a lot of different recipes where people say, don't worry about that white residue. It's just not something I kind of like to worry about it. I want to get rid of it. Now the last thing that we're going to be adding is agar-agar. Now agar-agar is a gelatin that is derived from seaweed. I'm just going to be doing 1 teaspoon of agar-agar. Now it doesn't seem like a lot because normally you would use 1 teaspoon for a smaller amount of water to create this big gelatin. We're not trying to create a gelatin. We're just trying to create a thicker mouthfeel. That's what this is gonna do. Now we have the stock pot in the back burner because that's gonna be going for most of the day. I'm gonna be adding 20 cups of filtered water to this. Now I have that on a high heat. I'm gonna get it to a rolling boil and we're gonna leave it uncovered at a rolling boil for about 6 hours or so to make this broth. This is gonna create a very rich broth. Now, I am gonna have to monitor this. If we lose about half of the water, I'm gonna add it back. In the end, we should go from 20 cups to about 10 cups. I'm gonna keep kind of rolling through that until we get an even amount. Now the next thing that we're gonna be creating while the broth is cooking is a scallion oil. This is gonna be really simple. All we need is some green onions or a Chinese scallion. Now I'm gonna use the whole bunch of them. I'm just gonna take off the ends. And then all I'm gonna be doing is just chopping these onions into smaller, probably 3-inch segments. And we're gonna be heating in a skillet about a half of a cup of oil. I'm gonna be using safflower oil for this. And once the oil is heated, we're just gonna drop all these guys right into the oil. So at this point, these guys have been simmering in this oil for about 10 minutes or so. They're super aromatic. I'm just gonna turn off the heat and let these guys chill here in this oil for another 20 minutes. We don't wanna touch them for a little while. They're just too hot at this moment. So now the next thing we're gonna be making is char siu. Now we're not gonna be using a braised pork belly like you commonly would, but we are gonna be using a Vietnamese vegan ham. Now all we're gonna do is we're gonna treat this very similar to pork belly, and we're going to sear the outside. Now I'm gonna sear it in the remaining oil that I have here from the scallion oil. We just bottled up that scallion oil and we're gonna let that sit aside with a little bit of the scallions. That's gonna just hang out in the back. It's gonna be a topping for our ramen to really kind of up that flavor. Now while we're searing the outside of this, I'm gonna get the braising sauce ready in a large Dutch oven. So the sauce is gonna be 1 large knob of ginger sliced up, 1 scallion peeled and sliced. I'm gonna do 1 cup of soy sauce, 1 cup of a Japanese or Chinese cooking wine, tablespoon of an oil, 2.5 cups water, and about 1 cup of sugar. So at this point, this is braised all the way around. I'm gonna remove the ham and put it in my braising sauce here. I'm just gonna add the oil and the remaining green onions that are in there. Just gonna pour that right over the top. Then I'm gonna throw that on about a low heat for the next 2 hours or so. These are going for quite a while. It's totally okay. So at this point, we have about 2 hours left. Getting really excited for this. We're getting really close. Now I have the ham in the Dutch oven. I have the heat off right now. It cooked for about 2 hours. I'm gonna remove it. And as you can see, I also have some tofu sitting here. We're gonna be using some tofu as almost like an egg replacer, because normally in a ramen, there's a seasoned egg. We're gonna essentially season some tofu just like we would the egg. That's why I'm not removing any of the sauce that we just used to make the char siu pork. This braised vegan pork looks amazing. I'm gonna cut about 1/2-inch thick pieces. Now at this point, I have them all in a glass container here, and I'm just gonna take some of the braising liquid and just pour it over the top. Now at this point, these guys are still really hot. I just wanna seal them up. Now you could do this in, like a vacuum sealer. If you have a bag, if you have baggies, large baggies that you wanna put it in, I would just seal them up and we're gonna let them rest for those last 2 hours. This is perfect, everything's perfect. So I have some water in a saucepan. We're gonna get that boiling for our noodles. Now I just got some fresh ramen noodles from my local Asian market. These are the thin, straight ramen noodles. These are not like what you would get in the package. We're not gonna be using those. Now these noodles are a little dense, so they're able to soak up a lot of that broth. It adds like a tons of flavor to them. Now I'm just gonna follow the instruction on cooking these, but first we have to strain our broth. It's all done cooking. We're gonna strain it, get all of that stuff out, and just leave the perfect, creamy, smooth, rich ramen broth. I'm so excited for this. This looks perfect. I'm gonna pick out some of the mushrooms because I wanna save these guys for some toppings. The smell is just wonderful. So we have some toppings. I have some corn and green onion that I have chopped up. And now we're gonna put together our bowl. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a bit of the char siu seasoning. I'm gonna drizzle in some of the oil that we made earlier, the scallion oil, and I'm gonna put that around the side of the bowl. 3 minutes is up on the noodles, so we're just gonna pull these guys out, and then I'm gonna run these under cold water to stop them from cooking. And now at this point, I just wanna ladle in some of the broth. I'm gonna drop my noodles in. I'm gonna do corn, some of the green onion, mushroom. I'm gonna add 2 pieces of this braised pork, and that's it. Oh, I forgot my tofu. That's beautiful. I mean, looks wonderful. Let's give it a try. I bet you this is gonna be out of this world. Oh my gosh. The noodles are so good. This broth looks perfectly. I mean, look at the broth. It's milky and creamy, just like a traditional ramen. I mean, ugh. Oh, I nailed it. I nailed it. I'm gonna give the pork a try. Wonderful. That's how you're gonna make a vegan ramen that rivals just about any meat-based ramen, everything that you would love in a ramen. Man, that was good. If you haven't yet, please make sure you click the subscribe button and click this video right here. That's the secret recipe to make ramen. I'm so excited about, I just can't be any more excited about how good this is.